This is Love Notes, daily devotions from Holy Trinity Lutheran Church. Grace and peace to you. Our text today is Luke, the 14th chapter, verses 25 through 35. I have to tell you that I wonder if we sometimes don't have any idea what Jesus is calling us to do. We think of gentle Jesus gathering the children, and we think of Jesus giving us everything that we want and need. We think of the songs that we sing that paint a picture of Jesus as one who just, serves coffee and donuts in the kingdom of God, without thinking about what it costs. What does it cost to follow Jesus? Jesus looks around and sees the large crowds traveling with him, and he turns and he says to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple." Jesus, we need to talk, because in the evangelism classes I took, that is not a way to grow the church. Whoever comes to me and does not hate father, mother, wife, child, brothers, sisters, and even life itself cannot be my disciple. We should remember that Luke is writing after the temple has been destroyed, after the synagogue and the Christian congregation have split or in the process of splitting, and families have been torn apart over whether they follow Jesus or not. So this is very real and apparent. And that's not just a historical thing. In my life and ministry, I've encountered all kinds of people who have had to choose between Jesus and family, and painfully have chosen Jesus. I don't know why Jesus is doing this. Maybe he wants to thin down the crowd a little bit, or maybe he just needs to say, do you know what you're getting into? Maybe it's kind of a way of making sure they understand what they're getting themselves into. There is an either-or character to the kingdom of God that Jesus puts forward here. Either you're following Jesus or you're following something else. And following something else does not lead to the reign of God. If you're following Jesus, then you've left behind your boats, like the disciples, and your tax booths, like Matthew did in one of the Gospels. You've left behind the comforts of home. You've made a break with your old life and have picked up the new one. It begs the question that I ask all the time, that I ask myself all the time. How is my life different? What have I given up? What have I done in the last 6 months because of Jesus that has made me different? Jesus then continues, "Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." That's a harsh word, a difficult word. Now, bearing the cross for the cross's sake or for suffering's sake is not what Jesus is saying. You have to go out and do some suffering-like deed in order to get Jesus' attention. No, you need to take the cross that's laid upon you in the choices you make to follow Jesus. All will experience different crosses. But you have to ask yourself, what do I do when the cost arises? And so Jesus tells them, "For which of you intending to build a tower does not first sit down and estimate the cost?" You figure out how much 2x4s are going to be needed, how many cement blocks you're going to need, whatever it is, to see whether you have enough money to pay for all that to complete it. Otherwise, when you've laid the foundation or not able to finish, all who see it will ridicule you. They will mock you. As Jesus hangs on the cross, part of the mocking is rooted in this kind of parable. They don't think he's got the capital to finish what he's saying, because he's talked of the cross. He now dies. how will he raise himself up? People will say, this fellow began to build and was not able to finish. Or what king going out to wage war against another king will not sit down first and consider whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one who has 20,000? If he can't do it, then while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. If you can't take the first course, then find a way to do it. But you have to follow. Therefore, he says, none of you can become my disciples if you do not give up all your possessions. This prefigures some of what stories will be told in the book of Acts, as Luke writes them later. The original community in Jerusalem sold everything that they had and shared the proceeds in common so that they could all eat from a common purse. They formed a commune. They formed a community where everybody looked out for everybody else. That may be exactly what Luke is thinking of. But there are other ways in which we can give up our possessions in whatever economic system we happen to be in by being generous, ready to share. Then Jesus reminds them that salt is good. Salt is one of the great commodities in all of human history. As a matter of fact, Roman soldiers were paid with salt. But if the salt has lost its taste, how can its saltiness be restored? I've read commentaries that ponder whether it's possible for salt to lose its taste. I think that's to miss Jesus' point here. If salt gets diluted, if something else gets in the mix, if something diminishes the salt and it doesn't taste salty anymore, then it's of no good. It's not useful for the soil or for the manure pile, so just throw it away. It's not going to do anything. If we become diluted, if we become watered down, if our commitment is less than pure, 100%, unadulterated, then what is to be done with us? To run around and say, I believe in Jesus, and then to have no impact on the world as we bring about the reign of God, stand in opposition to one another. Maybe you can think about it this way. The kingdom of God is like selling a house. You can't sell a house and then move into the new one partially, keeping some of your possessions in the old one. You got to break with the past and move to the new. And that's what Jesus calls us to do.